I'd like to start by thanking all of you guys for coming today and for Barnes & Noble for holding this author event weekend. As you know, I'm not the only one. There will be some others today and tomorrow, so they'll be at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock and also tomorrow, same times. I'm grateful for the opportunity to introduce myself. Most of you know me. Okay. As an author, I spend a lot of time weaving stories that I hope my readers will come to appreciate, so any chance I get to share my books, I'm eager for the chance. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a native of Missouri and was raised by my paternal grandparents. As a child, I spent countless hours at the local library and read many great books. One of those was Bridge to Terabithia. While a wonderful and touching story, it was also very depressing. For me, that was the initial turning point. I didn't want to invest so much time in a book only to feel miserable at the end. That is when my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Bailey, became a big inspiration for a dream that would last for 30 years. She liked reading the stories I made in class, so with her encouragement, my writing journey began. I started out putting pen to paper, graduating to an old Underwood typewriter. I pecked away at the keys until my fingers hurt, but I just knew I was destined to be an author, so determination won out in the end. I wrote anything from fantasy to mystery in the intervening years, but never finished anything because either inspiration would fade or I just wasn't happy with the storyline and got stuck in the middle. It's that dreaded writer's block. By the time high school rolled around, further inspiration would come from my grandmother. An avid reader herself, she told me that some of her favorite books were Gothic romances. These vintage books with the castle on a towering cliff held more than a hint of mystery and intrigue. I quickly devoured any I could find before moving on to Harlequin. The Americana series by Janet Daly is still one of my all-time favorite modern romances and is part of my permanent collection, although I'm sorry to say that George's Knight of the Cotillion is my top pick. Wins out over Missouri. From there, the romance genre began to appeal to me more than any other. As a fan of Beauty and the Beast, I enjoyed the premise of a fairy tale love. Combining this with my love of history, I began to read books that featured the American Civil War, pirates, and dashing highwaymen. But it wasn't until I picked up Midnight Bride by Kathleen Dryman, did I develop a fascination for British history. The book takes place during the Revolutionary War in America with the help of a rather dim-witted hero, kind of like Scarlet Pimpernel, along that line. In truth, he is the Falcon, a dashing lord who aids the colonies in their fight for freedom. Not long afterward, I stumbled across another author, some of you may know, by the name of Jane Austen. I was hooked. I love the Regency and Victorian periods for the fashions, the manners, and society in general. Every time I do research, I learn something new, and it has kept me enthralled in the past. As for me, years go by, and I start a family. While I still thought about writing, in the back of my mind, I considered typing as more of a hobby, and I didn't want to take the attention away from my children and my responsibilities. It wasn't until I got my first laptop, courtesy of my wonderful and supportive husband and my dad, did I begin to carve out time to seriously think about becoming an author. I knew it was a tough business, but I was as tenacious as a dog with a bone. This was still my dream after all. But as it usually happens, disaster strikes at the worst of times. Already with 2 rejected manuscripts to my credit, my laptop abruptly crashed and burned. Unfortunately, I didn't have a backup. All of the hours of typing and brainstorming were wiped away forever. However, in hindsight, I think that piece of machinery did me a favor. I had no choice but to start over from a clean slate. That's when I began writing Why the Earl is After the Girl. I wondered how a girl in a similar situation would feel if she had just been told she lost her entire inheritance the way I'd lost all of my work. The first reaction would likely be shock, which if you read the first line of the book, it says, "What do you mean it's all gone?" That's what I said to my dad when he said, "I'm sorry, but," and I'm like, "What do you mean? It's all gone." Readers have asked me if I use any true-to-life experiences in my books. This was certainly one of those times. On the heels of all this disappointment, self-doubt begins to creep in. Would I ever see my name in print? I always had people asking me if I was still writing and would I ever consider self-publishing. The thought had definitely crossed my mind, but I had already decided that I wasn't going to be an author unless someone else could believe in my work as much as I did. So after I finished my third manuscript, I dared to send it out into the wild. As before, the rejections kept coming back, except one. A small ebook-based company by the name of Utopia Press said that they wanted to offer me a contract for the book. With a total of 63 rejections in my possession, I had a lawyer look over the specifics before finally accepting their offer. And in July of 2016, my debut novel was published. It was a labor of love that lasted through countless hours of edits and revisions, but more than that, it was the anxiety of finally laying myself bare. Would anyone even read it? Would they enjoy the story of twists and turns as much as I did creating it? Thus, when I received my first positive review on Amazon, I nearly cried. When I went on to receive the Best Indie Book Award for Romance, which is this one, and 2017 for independent and small press publishers, and second place in romance for 2018 from the Feathered Quill Book Awards, I was even more humbled. While I can now call myself a multi-award winning author with 2 more books published in my Ways of Love series, Where the Viscount Met His Match and When a Duke Pursues a Lady, with hopefully a lot more on the horizon, I will always be that small town girl who had a dream. Seeing my name in print became a reality, but that only means that I can push myself to do better and reach higher. As the late Stephen Hawking said, look up at the stars and not down at your feet.